Welcome back to the War Room. Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam here. Wednesday, June the 3rd, the year of our Lord 2020, on America's Voice, News, the John Fredericks Radio Network, with all our partners across the U.S. as well. Newsmax packaged up. I actually stayed up and watched the Newsmax roundup last night. They did a great job covering up my face with B-roll every time I was speaking, and that was to everyone's benefit. I didn't realize, by the way, producer Dan, that the light from there above us right here completely washes me out. We're gonna have to talk about that. Get me some spray tan or something. We obviously are in day 8 now of this United States of Anarchy, and while Washington, D.C., where we are, may have been somewhat more quiet last night, that wasn't the same case all the way around the country. In fact, we talked earlier in hour 1 of today's show about the 30 or so ATMs that have been smashed to bits or even blown up in some cases.
Blown up in Philadelphia.
And of course, what happened in New York last night. I mean, we obviously have friends in New York. We have friends in Midtown Manhattan. We had Buck Sexton on the show yesterday also. People are scared because there doesn't seem to be any semblance of control or even willingness to exercise control over all of this. I want to welcome in on the discussion as well now our usual co-host, Jason Miller, who's been out. Jason, would you call yourself on assignment?
Yeah, that's one interesting way to put it, Raheem. I'm on the mend following some back surgery on Friday, and definitely on the road to recovery, but it's sore.
I told you not to get in that wrestling match with Steve. You didn't listen to me. This is what happens. People think he's 66 years old. He can't take a guy. Body slammed you, Jason. We're glad you're on the mend. We're glad to have you with us. I want to get your take on all of this stuff. We had Ryan Godersky on the show a second ago talking about the White House response to this and why he believes, his article in the American Conservative, that it took so long, and how President Trump saved himself and the country with his Rose Garden speech on Monday. But take us into the mind of Jason Miller. You're probably one of the top 5 maybe political consultants, campaign consultants, person who understands all angles of things like this. What's going on in Jason Miller's mind?
Yeah, I'm actually feeling very good this morning from the aspect of the lowering of the temperature last night. And we still obviously are seeing way too many images of crazy things that are happening, and still seeing a lot of the protests. But when you have Savannah Guthrie from the Today Show open up her monologue this morning saying curfews and a massive show of police force lead to a quieter night, fewer clashes, and less violence, that's good. That means it's moving in the right direction. And the reason why that's happening is because President Trump smartly came out and said that we're going to start sending in the National Guard into places, even if some of these mayors and blue state governors don't want it, we're going to start sending them in, and there's going to be a zero tolerance. And in coordination, so you have the National Guard, you have the police forces that are getting their acts together, but then you also have some of the peaceful protesters who realize that they're being jumbled together with the criminals, the Antifas, the rioters, the looters, and that's actually hurting their cause. You have a lot of the peaceful protesters that are starting to self-police themselves, so to speak, as well. And so I think we're in a better place this morning. By no means are we out of the woods, but look, this really comes down to President Trump and that Rose Garden speech, and I think this was a defining moment of his presidency.
It's a defining moment, I think, for the media as well. The fake news, as we talked about yesterday morning on the show, of the deployment of tear gas by Park Police in Lafayette Square, and the lengths the media went along with this the Episcopalian bishop who's been touring the television studios, maybe albeit remotely, to blast the president for walking to a church and holding a Bible up. Jason, your response to how the media has played this over the last couple of days, and to the bishop.
Yeah, and Raheem, by the way, you've continued to do great work at National Pulse, the website, the news site that you run at nationalpulse.com, and so that's made that a regular in my rotation of news sources. But you were one of the first people to get on this with the fact that there was no tear gas that was used on any sort of peaceful protesters. And by the way, not all of the folks that were out there were peaceful protesters. I think that's another misnomer that many in the media were trying to push. Here is why President Trump's walk to St. John's was so consequential. Because the night before, St. John's was on fire. Let's not ignore that fact that some group of scumbags, and that's really what they were, actually went and were looting and setting a church on fire only a couple blocks from the White House. And for President Trump to then go and walk over there and show that this is once again safe, that people can go to churches, they can get out and about, that is a massive signal. And in many ways, it reminds me, and again, one is of a much more serious level, but when George W. Bush went to the rubble and had the bullhorn following 9/11 and made it clear that we Americans weren't going to be intimidated by terrorists, President Trump going and standing outside of St. John's, holding the Bible and saying that that we are here and this is going to be safe and able to go to, that we're not going to be bullied, we're not going to be pushed around. This is a message that's sent to everyone around the country. And Raheem and team, this is the big takeaway. Yes, right now, the spark that's setting off murder of George Floyd. And by the way, we know that the one officer has been charged with murder. I think we're going to see other charges coming, hopefully as soon as today, against these other 3 police officers, which should be charged with murder or something close. But that's a side conversation. Even though that was the spark, the underlying condition is you have many Americans who are upset, feel like they've lost hope. There's a sense of hopelessness because they've been sheltered in place, and maybe they've lost their jobs, maybe their economic opportunities have been shut down, and as we go through this global pandemic. But we can't continue to make positive progress in reopening our economy until people are safe to actually go downtown in their respective cities and continue with commerce. And so that's why it was so key that President Trump went out there to show that, yes, we are reopening the country. It's safe to go into our cities. It's safe to start getting back to our way of life. And that's why this was so critical. There's so much more going on than just the short walk over to the church.
Hey, Jason, it's Jack here. Also, Morning Consult came out with a poll late yesterday afternoon. Now, they did this through May 31st to June 1st, and it showed that a vast majority of Americans, including nearly half of Democrats, support calling out the military. So as of this morning, we have 20,000 National Guard troops have been deployed to 28 different states. And what they're saying is that 58% of Americans support using troops to bring back order inside this country, and it's across all lines. This is almost a universal opinion. So I think the president's taking the right tack.
Yeah, and Jack, that's such a great point that you bring up, because what Americans want are safe streets. They want to feel safe as they're going out in their communities. And for Jack, you and I are a little bit older, and remember back to New York back in the late '80s, early '90s, before Rudy came in. Just the lawlessness that we saw in many of our urban centers. Even Detroit, even until just recently, the mess that city has been. That absolutely kills cities for being able to have any sort of economy, or for having a decent tax base, or having people that feel good about their community. Folks just want to have safe streets. And they very much, and that poll that you referenced, that Morning Consult poll, shows that people want the job to get done. And I gave a quote yesterday, I believe it was in the Washington Post, where I got a little bit of heat online. Maybe it was a little bit hot, even for my standards. But I said, with regard to the bad guys, and I was very specifically referencing the Antifas, the looters, the people who are rioting and committing violence. They're gonna, if we have to knock them around a little bit, and when they get some pepper spray and they get some tear gas and they get moved out, then they're not going to come back. They're not going to want another round of this. This has nothing to do with the peaceful protesters who are following the rules and who are rightfully making their opinions heard. But these are the organized professional people that are trying to cause chaos. And we've all seen, and Raheem, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. We've all seen the images of the white hippie-looking guy who's handing out cash to African-American teenagers and instructing them to go and cause violence and cause damage. There's a lot of organization and Antifa that's going into this that we're going to have to get to the bottom of. And Chris Ray, I want to see some answers, buddy.
Well, this is the thing, Jason, and you hit upon this. We hit on it in the first hour today as well. Is how much, what level of competency are we dealing with here within the U.S. government about how much people know about Antifa, what their tactics are, how many places are dropping off pallets of bricks every night, who's doing it, are we tracking license plates on this thing? And, you have the Cuccinellis of the world going up on Lou Dobbs and saying, oh, I don't know if Antifa's done anything internationally. Hello, Antifa came from internationally to the United States. It is a European export in terms of what it is as an ideology and what it is as this loose organization. And the other thing that people don't get about Antifa, and in fact all of the sort of harder left, the non-liberal left, the authoritarian left, as these guys really are beneath the surface, not even really anymore, as you can see it as all the stores downtown in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure in a lot of other towns and cities, places that you guys at home are watching from, are boarded up. The businesses that had opened for that's closed for 3 months, that were waiting and waiting and waiting. Remember, many of them didn't even want to take government money. They didn't want these things. They took them because it's an act of desperation. And then they finally can open. Slowly. Phase 1, safely. Slowly opening to the public, allowing people into their stores, onto their patios. What the first place I went to when this opened, Greg, Silent Greg, tell him where I went.
Morton's.
I went to Morton's, and I went to Morton's because we raised $15,000 at the beginning of the pandemic. We raised $15,000 for the staff, for the bar staff out there and the thing, to make sure that they would be okay through that month. Remember, it was supposed to be 30 days through that month that they would be okay, that they would at least have something. And I went there because I wanted to show them, hey, if you're coming back to work, I'm coming back to spend money with you. And we all look after each other like that. Go ahead, Jason.
One important point I want to make before we get up on the break here. And you correctly point out some of the inefficiencies and some of the being asleep at the switch at the federal government, which, thank goodness, President Trump is putting this smack down and saying that we're not going to put up with this anymore. And I read that quote from Savannah Guthrie at the beginning. But also as we talk about the one-party rule in many of these blue states, and in particular these big cities, these big city mayors have been so incompetent in this process. I mean, let's take a Jacob Fry, the soy boy who's running Minneapolis. Guys, I wouldn't trust him to manage a lemonade stand, let alone manage a big metropolitan city. And I think a lot of times we have this feeling that if someone's been elected to run a major city, whether it's Philly or Atlanta or Washington, D.C. or Minneapolis or, heaven forbid, New York, that these folks must know what they're doing, that they have some level of qualifications. And what we've found out in this process is a lot of these big city mayors just don't have any clue what they're doing. They're more worried about being woke than well-being. And that's why I think it was so important that President Trump said, hey, we're going to bring in the National Guard, whether you like it or not, to get these cities under control, because especially the Jacob Frys of the world have been so clueless about doing what needs to be done. They're worried about ruffling any feathers and the delicate sensibilities of people who are rioting and looting, and that is a complete disservice to the populations and the communities in their cities. And so I think in places like Minnesota, we're going to see some electoral change in these upcoming elections.
Jason, I wonder if we can tempt you to come back in the D block of the show to talk about this latest breaking news about Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. Clearly the media trying to drive another wedge here. Thank you to Jason Miller for joining us. Just give me a text, see if you can join us in the D block. When we come back, Bill McGinley, Jack Maxey, Greg Mans, Raheem Kassam, War Room Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, and now Bill McGinley, former White House Cabinet Secretary, long time friend of this show, and we're always grateful to have Bill McGinley with us. We will be getting into some of the some more of the details that are coming out in the news this morning, specifically President Trump saying that he wasn't down in the secure bunker but went in the day for a tiny short period of time for an inspection. So we'll be getting into some of the details of that. Also, the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, stating Wednesday that he doesn't necessarily, or at least this is the way CNN is headlining it, so caveat emptor, doesn't necessarily support using active duty troops to quell large-scale protests across the United States. Quote from Mark Esper, the option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort and only in the most urgent and dire of situations. We are not in one of those situations right now. I do not support invoking the Insurrection Act, end quote. Esper has been under pressure from people in his own department. There was a Pentagon employee, I believe, on the Pentagon Defense Science Board, James Miller, I don't believe any relation to Jason Miller, who resigned, citing Mark Esper and the President Trump photo outside St. John's Church. We'll see. We'll be digging into more of that. Greg Mans is running the War Room as well as running the Clips board here, and of course we've got the National Pulse team on it as well. I want to go to Bill McGinley now, though, because in amongst all of this, we still have to prepare for the future. We cannot just live simply in the present. And one of the preparations that is being made clear yesterday is the change of location for the Republican National Convention. That was supposed to be taking place on August the 24th, runs through to the 27th, and originally was going to be taking place in Charlotte, I believe. And that may not well be the case anymore. Is that correct, Mr. McGinley?
That's correct. The news reported last night that the president is asking both the Republican National Committee and the campaign to start actively exploring alternate sites to hold the Republican National Convention due to the fact that the North Carolina governor and the mayor are taking the posture that they're not going to give a firm answer one way or another whether the National Convention can proceed as it has in the past, which would be full delegates on the floor plus spectators, despite the fact that the pandemic has been receding a bit and a lot of states are beginning to open up. So it was a bold move by President Trump, and I think it's one that he's probably going to actively pursue, and it's going to have his staff travel to multiple sites to find potential alternate locations for this event.
We'll get into the potential locations in just a moment. You're an expert in this stuff. Just tell our audience a little bit about your work at conventions, specifically at the 2016 convention as well. But let me ask you this question, just for the people out there who want some more specifics. What exactly is the governor's problem? Governor Roy Cooper, what's the hold up here? Is this partisanship? Is this something else at play here, Bill?
Look, we don't have any evidence, but the rumor mill is running into overdrive that the Democratic governor of North Carolina and some of the people around him may be playing politics with this a bit. We never want to politicize a public health emergency, but we've seen what some of the folks have done around the country. As Steve Bannon always says, there's no coincidences. I think that the president's right to say, look, if North Carolina is not going to permit us to hold the convention, then we're going to need to find alternate sites where we can actually do it in a safe, responsible, but also productive way to launch the fall campaign. And, as somebody who's done national conventions since 1996, I was counsel to the Convention Rules Committee in 2012. Did delegate contest litigation in 2012 and 2016, ran the delegate whip operation, especially focusing on the rules when the Never Trumpers were trying to steal the nomination from then nominee Trump by freeing the delegates or letting them vote their conscience, as their slogan said. We were able to put that down and preserve the will of the people, meaning that the people who voted to support then candidate Trump to become the nominee, we made sure that their voices were reflected on the delegate count on the floor. So, as typical, President Trump is always on the side of the the people who never really seem to have the voice that nobody pays attention to. And I think by him telling the North Carolina governor, look, we're going to look at alternate sites, I think what he's doing is he's making sure that those people's voices can be heard again this August.
Where are we looking at? What are the options, and what is best in Bill McGinley's mind?
So Florida seems to be one of the states that people are looking at. I know that Tennessee is making a pretty big push to do it. I think if the president decides to not use Charlotte as the location, and I have to put a parenthetical here, there is a chance that you could have some convention activities in Charlotte, but that there's events held throughout the country. One of the things that President Trump is somebody who is going to explore ways convention bigger and better. And one of the options that may be on the table for both the RNC and the campaign under the rules is for them to have an anchor site where he will actually give his acceptance speech of the nomination. But they could have satellite sites throughout the country where delegates gather, which could have the impact of increasing the number of people who hear his message directly in a convention site, from 25 to 30 up to 50 to close to 100,000 people. You could have regional sites. Under the rules of the Republican Party, there's a lot of business that can be transacted by electronic device, including the adoption of the rules, the platform, the Credentials Committee report, which establishes the permanent role of delegates, plus permanent organization, which elects the officers of the committee of the convention. And, the one thing that's supposed to happen in person is the roll call for the nomination for president. Because the rules that govern the convention are going to be adopted at this convention, there's an opportunity for the Rules Committee to make a provision in there that would allow the roll call and the votes to be tallied for nomination to be done by electronic device, which could allow them to have multiple sites, which could increase the number of people participating in the national convention.
Bill, have you heard anything? And I realize we haven't spoken about this before, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot. Have you heard anything about the Republican Party platform itself? Because the rumor mill in Washington, D.C. is there is a force that is trying to strip out a lot of the socially conservative elements of the Republican Party platform this time and turn it sort of into a short list of bullet points rather than having a comprehensive policy platform?
Yeah, there was a New York Times article that said that one of the ideas that was actively under consideration was taking the Republican platform, which is a tens of pages document, and boiling it down to almost like a pocket card of 10 basic principles. This was something that some folks at the 2016 convention tried to do because they didn't agree with some of the more conservative planks in the Republican platform. They wanted to substitute it with one that I think was from the 1860s, shortly after the establishment of the party. I'm sure that there are a lot of things under consideration. I will tell you that delegates who serve on the platform committee, it is the pinnacle of their life every 4 years to be able to participate in that process. They spend 4 years talking to their neighbors, friends, and colleagues about it. They typically have one provision in the platform that they're very energized about. And if that's the case, there's going to be an extremely robust debate about it because it's going to be something that would take away a lot of work from the Republican Party. So we'll see. But I expect this convention to go very smoothly. This is the president's party now, and I expect him to have a terrific convention that's going to launch him into the fall campaign.
Bill McGinley, former White House Cabinet Secretary. Where can the audience find more from you?
Twitter account is at WJ McGinley. That's at WJ McGinley on Twitter.
We'll make sure we pop it out to all of our audience. And thank you so much for enlightening us on the changes afoot. Bill McGinley there. Thank you. In the segment that we just had, we had the National Pulse staff, Natalie Winters, and the team looking into this Mark Esper, Defense Secretary, distancing himself. Is it still timey, Jack? Is CNN still going with this Mark Esper story right now?
It's not on there. They don't have it up anymore.
Yeah, they'd had it on a second ago. Trying to drive a wedge in this administration, right?
One thing that we have to remember is, we're assuming that Mark Esper has made this comment, off the cuff without consultation with the administration. It may be that the National Guard has been deployed to 28 states in cooperation with the governors. It may be that they have not come to an internal decision yet to actually apply the act.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's perfectly fair. And that's why I say driving the wedge. Right. So Mark Esper's being asked to respond because this guy, James Miller, had come out and resigned as a result of the walk through Lafayette. I mean, imagine resigning your role because the president went on a walk, right? He resigned because the president went on a walk. James Miller... Natalie Winters is going into the background of this guy who's forced this whole conversation, and the New York Times just popped up a notification on my phone about it. So this is the narrative that they're going with today. James Miller. If it's the same James Miller, and we're looking into this, if it's the same James Miller, big Obama donor in 2008 and appointed under Obama into the Pentagon. Just saying. They don't tell you that in the CNN copy and the New York Times copy.
Well, if I could say anything, I hope that all the other people who are outraged with this president and who go to work every day trying to thwart his policies, please, all of you, take your moral high ground and quit today.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to have a new intro when we come back, right, Greg? We've got a little something special for you guys. Stay tuned. War and Pandemic. Greg Manns, Raheem Kassam, and Jack Maxey.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam. Hey, since we often plug the guests, I'm going to plug my own stuff as well right now. Firstly, I want to make sure that everybody's going to pandemic.warroom.org and signing up for the newsletter. What I'm going to do is, we did one already. The person has received a free copy of my last book, Enoch Was Right. So I want to do that again for people. Make sure that you get on the newsletter, and I'll pick out a random thing to send you, and we'll send you a copy of the signed copy of the book. I even get Jack Maxey to sign it, because let's face it, Jack Maxey's a fan favorite, and nobody wants my autograph. They want Jack Maxey. But the thing is, Jack Maxey can't write, so it should be a paw print. He's going to dip his head. He's going to sign it. But the National Pulse as well, the nationalpulse.com, what we're doing there is we're putting together a group of young, you see, we had on the show Jack Posobiec, Matt Palumbo, Ryan Godusky. These are all people around my age. I'm not going to tell you that. No, it's 33, who are younger and who do the research and who are really sort of what I call OG MAGA, right? We weren't part of the November the 9th squad. We were there before that, my background with Brexit and all of that too. So go to the National Pulse. What we're doing is we are having our own investigative unit, right? CNN has its K-File, and Vice has the thing, and all these left-wing media organizations, massively funded, by the way, corporations, foundations, plow money into these things. I'm not asking you for money. I'm just asking you to bookmark the National Pulse, go there, make sure you click on, share the stories. That's all we're concerned about. We just want the truth out there, and we were one of the first to pop the story about David Dorn as well yesterday, given that the media doesn't do its job properly. And also yesterday morning on the show, we popped the story about the tear gas that was supposedly used in Lafayette Park and the questions that were raised as a result of that. We'll be getting into that in the next segment here. But for now, I want to hand over the show, hand over the reins. Greg, would you hit it?
Welcome to the Jack Maxey Show.
Jack Maxey.
A cough for the fans.
A cough to begin.
Listen, one of the things I want to talk about today, we're going to go back to hydroxychloroquine.
By the way, we got to get some music behind that or something. We're going to tune that little intro for Jack up. Jack, there's so much going on in the world.
I choose the national anthem, people.
Which one?
Our national anthem, the U.S. national anthem.
Oh, sorry, not my one.
The music, yeah.
There's so much going on in the world. We can't take our eye off the fact that there is a global pandemic going on, and
yes,
you are across all the detail on the hydroxychloroquine. Take us on a journey, Jack.
Okay, now does anybody remember the great Lancet article of about 2 weeks ago called Hydroxychloroquine or Chloroquine with or without Macrolide for the Treatment of COVID-19, a Multinational Registry Analysis? This was one of those wonderful retrospective studies where they pulled data from all the wonderful, clean World Health Organization type hospitals around the world. The fact of the matter is the World Health Organization used this study to declare hydroxychloroquine to be dangerous. Meanwhile, they have a study from 2016 of millions of people in a territory called Africa where it was not dangerous. But apparently when it gets out of Africa, it's extremely dangerous. Now, Lancet has come out after various countries, including Australia, which claims none of the data that they claim was from Australia is from Australia, has come out saying important scientific questions have been raised about data reported in the paper by Mandeep Mehra et al. The fact of the matter is this was a cocked-up study with the intent to destroy the ability of people to use hydroxychloroquine in the treatment of this disease. There's going to be some things coming out over the next few days that will shock you. I think one of the things that one should keep in mind is foreign actors in here trying to change the data. I also want to go to something else that has not been covered very effectively, and we'd love to get this man back on the air. He's actually engaged right now in a study with the United States on the use of hydroxychloroquine that just got announced a few days ago bilaterally between Brazil and the United States. They're going to do the study from the Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, and they're going to extend it to Brazil, which I think is a wonderful thing. Now, if you remember, Dr. Paulo Zonato, who is a world-renowned virologist and expert, he works at the University of Sao Paulo. A few weeks ago, he wrote a letter to JAMA asking that they retract their study, which was called Effective High versus Low Doses of Chloroquine Diphosphate. Now, this was a study that was done in quotations, that was done in Brazil, where they looked at the effects of hydroxychloroquine on a number of very elderly patients. Now, Dr. Zonato clearly accused these doctors of murder. In complete disregard for any ethical standards, the authors administered a lethal dose of chloroquine to hospitalized elders under severe COVID-19 disease. These patients were given well over 12 grams, many of them, over 6 to 10 days. The FDA declared lethal dosage for chloroquine is 5 grams. Wow. These people were given double the lethal dosage. That any of them survived is a surprise. Now, he wrote this letter to JAMA asking for a retraction. And JAMA writes back unbelievably ridiculous letter. It says, "Dear Professor Zonato, I have reviewed the manuscript you have referenced on page 3 of 14. The authors indicate the protocol was approved by the Brazilian Committee of Ethics in Human Research. They discussed the toxic effects, blah, 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 blah. There was no ethical review. This was a bad study. The Journal of American Medical Association published it, and they still have refused to pull it. It is unbelievable that this is going on. This is a global effort to undermine the positive treatment of people around the world. There are blood on the hands of these scientists who have taken science and politicized it at every single level. Now, one thing I want to put out there for everybody today, as we're in lockdown, as we're watching global frustration because of this lockdown play out in the streets of America, I want everybody to remember who put us here, okay? This is the Chinese Communist Party. Let's take this anger in the street and transfer it to the people who have created this chaos. And today is a very important day, because tomorrow is the 31st anniversary of Tiananmen Square. If you are going to go out and protest injustice, which I support the protest of, America, it would be nice if some people were carrying signs to reference these victims from 31 years ago. And also it would be nice for everybody to maybe light some candles tomorrow, because the Communist Party has made it impossible for the people of Hong Kong to celebrate this holiday in a mournful fashion in Victoria Park, which they have done for 31 years. I want Americans to light a candle tomorrow for those victims of communism, and then look in the mirror, because you too are a victim of communism right now. Look in the streets, what's going on. This is not America. This is outside influence trying to destroy our nation, trying to destroy the brotherhood between the American people, okay? This has to stop, and we have to recognize that we are one family bound by one flag, and we all bleed red, okay? This is my message for today. Out.
Welcome to the Jack Maxey Show.
There you go. Well, no, I mean, besides the lame production on that, thank you, producer Dan, producer Vicious, out today as well. I like the segment. And you're absolutely right to raise the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square, especially with the crackdown on the annual commemoration that we're now seeing already from the Chinese emboldened in Hong Kong. There's a lot of news breaking as we speak as well. We can deal with what's going on yesterday, overnight, early this morning, but there's a lot of breaking news going on out there as well right now. I mean, the CNN homepage is a dumpster fire, by the way. They're leading with the defense chief. They then have this listicle about the staggering inequality between blacks and whites in the U.S., where they go into detail about how black unemployment has been up over the last couple of months. Yeah, all unemployment has been up over the last couple of months. And this is CNN trying to drive a wedge again, exactly what you said, drive a wedge between Americans. And the other bit of breaking news right now at the moment is this Chinese airline block. The United States government says it will block Chinese airlines from flying into the U.S. in response to what it says is a policy that has prevented U.S. carriers from service between the two countries. So we've got a lot going on out there, gentlemen, right now. Let's take it one by one. The Mark Esper thing, as I am getting live reports of James Miller, who was the guy that resigned from the Pentagon, who created this whole furore, and the media picked up on this yesterday and pushed the Secretary of Defense into making a statement on this. We broke on the show a minute ago, and we'll have an article up on the National Pulse about it immediately after the show, but we broke on the show. This guy was an Obama donor, was an Obama appointee. Turns out, Biden donor too. Why don't they ever mention that? You know, why did the CNN headline never mention that? Why doesn't the Stand first mention that? Why didn't paragraph 6 mention that?
Because it's unimportant. The simple fact that he is in opposition to the president means that he is so morally superior that any question of his motives is not important. This is ridiculous.
It drives me insane. The Washington Post popping up the resignation letter from James Miller on its website. As if this is, again, this is the Vindman strategy, right, Greg? The Vindman strategy. Just speak up for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. With this going on with Mr. Miller, look for the full administrative state to start leaking more discord that he has. Few months, what he thought he should have said but didn't, and that is going to be something to look out for.
Jack?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm not worried about this. The whole government is filled with these people. The world can know this. I've been living in Washington, D.C. for the last 8 months, a very unimpressive city in my mind. There's far too much dead weight earning $100,000 to show up and play solitaire on their computers every day, in my opinion. I'm not worried about the president. I think he is taking leadership. I think he is showing the American people what courage looks like. I think the polling earlier today shows that the American people of all political stripes want this to end. I think that we are dishonoring Mr. Floyd. And I have to tell you, I mean, literally, I get emotional thinking about it. I could not watch the entire video. I think I've watched it piecemeal now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even my 84-year-old mother called me up crying about this. I mean, this isn't something that has bothered everybody. And to see this man's memory and to see what could be a really positive thing for America to have this open discussion hijacked by left-wing anarchists These kids from the suburbs, what are they complaining about? The pool's not open at the country club? I think they need to be identified. I think they need to be named. I think they need to be shamed. I think their parents need to be put out on the line as well.
Marching them into a police station like we saw the other day with one of them, Greg.
God bless those parents. I give them a lot of
credibility.
Parenting.
Yep, that was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and that's parenting, right? That's actually doing. And by the way, that's being a citizen as well. Is your kid is smashing things up or trying to implicate black protesters in violence or trying to provoke them into it? Straight to jail.
I'll say this quickly. Once again, black pain is being exploited by the left in this country. Okay, they're getting you to burn down your own cities, man. Bingo. Come on, and this is the left doing this to you again.
Bingo. And that's what was on the CNN homepage as well. More division. We'll be back to wrap up with more War Room Pandemic in just a moment.
10 seconds, guys.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Programming note for our producer: 10 seconds means you have 10 seconds to go. Not the music's kind of come in right now, but we'll get you up to speed, producer Dad. We'll get Vish to trade you up. How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, we're very grateful to all of our broadcasting partners. We're also grateful to our sponsor, NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. Smart companies run on NetSuite because NetSuite gives you the visibility and control you need over your financials, HR, e-commerce, everything in one place. And that is the same if you're doing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions in sales. NetSuite lets you manage every single penny with precision. You have the agility with NetSuite to compete with anyone, anywhere, right from your phone. So join over 20,000 companies who trust NetSuite to make it happen. NetSuite surveyed hundreds of business leaders and assembled a playbook of top strategies they're using as America reopens for business. So receive your free guide. It's free. It's 7 actions businesses need to take now, and schedule your free product tour at netsuite.com/Bannon. That's netsuite.com/Bannon. And in the B block of this hour, I talked to, when we had Jason Miller on, I was talking about my return to Morton's. And it's not an advertisement. I don't even like their food, quite frankly. But I like the atmosphere there. And whoever's dingers and dongers are on. This is a live show, guys. The reason I brought it up was because the staff there, I got a text message from one of the bartenders I've known there. I think I've known him for 10 years now. And he says to me, man, I can't believe this, or what's going on right now. As soon as we were getting back to normal, as soon as we were able to open, and they can't fully open, of course, this is DC. There's 4 tables where there were 20. And there's 1 staff on call for the entire place rather than the full pal. So not everyone's getting back to work and getting back to good tips that we try and leave. And he texted me, and I just felt so bad. He said as soon as we were getting back, this stuff starts happening. They start smashing things up, and so they're closed. They're boarded up and closed. And yeah, I get it. I don't particularly care about the big corporate that owns Morton's. I care about the individual workers there who have taken care of us for so long, and we've taken care of them for so long. Because that's community, right? That's what we're talking about here. That's what we've talked about all through this show. We had Jack Posobiec on at the top of the very first hour of this show talking about how he's raised now, I think they're $180,000 for the family of the slain police captain David Dawn. The slain police captain, by the way, that the media didn't want to tell you about until it trended nationwide at #2 on social media because of ordinary people, not media types, who wanted to bring attention to that black life that mattered and all the others that have been extinguished during this rioting and during this looting and during this time. Now, there's so much going on out there right now, gents. There are new decisions that are being made right now on additional charges of the rest of the police officers involved in the death of George Floyd, and the Attorney General in Minnesota is due to be making what's being billed as, quote, a significant announcement in the case early this afternoon. So now three former officers who have been seen on the video. They obviously have been named. We're going to be waiting later on today in terms of what the significant announcement is. The other thing that the media is playing up right now and hyping is trying to drive this wedge in the Trump administration, this wedge between the Defense Secretary Mark Esper and the President, as per the use of troops, active duty troops, to quell the protests. And not just that the Secretary of Defense has said that maybe that isn't a good idea or he doesn't agree with it, but also coming out and talking about other things pertaining to the situation as it's being policed in Washington, D.C. Defense Secretary talking about how the helicopters may have been flying too low or unsafe, and that he wants to investigate this. So I think we may have a runner here.
We may have a runner, and if he's going to run away. We don't need cowards on the front line, Mr. Esper. You are the Defense Secretary. We expect you to be big, bold, and strong. Okay? If you're going to start whining, you can head for the door. We don't need you. Number two, what I really would like people to start thinking about is, as you're watching these cities go into chaos, and as the people who have legitimate grievances are out there expressing them, I want you to look around a little bit, because we're tearing down statues, right? The mayor of Philadelphia tore down a symbolic statue of Mayor Rizzo, claiming that he was an awful person for minorities and LGBTQ. This is all probably true, but let's remember one thing. He was a two-time Democrat mayor of Philadelphia. There is a Democrat mayor of Philadelphia today. Those statues that you want to tear down in Birmingham and in Memphis and all those places, as far as I'm concerned, tear them down. Every single one of those people sitting on a horseback in the town squares of the old Confederacy is a Democrat. This party has been betraying African Americans since Jackson created it. And it is time to wake up, people. These are your cities. Take them back, man. Make them the voices they should be, filled with wonderful people. And it is this Democrat machine that has held you down for 50, 60 years. Just pay attention and take it back, man. We got your back, people. We want you to succeed.
Great.
And as we speak, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, is at the White House, so we should be on the lookout for news coming this afternoon.
We're going to keep an eye on all of this as the day goes on. Make sure that you're following hashtag War Room Pandemic at pandemic.warroom.org. We're taking advice as to whether or not we should add Jack's face to the banner here behind us in the War Room. I said that we should put a little Jack poking out of Jason Miller's pocket for the pocket square.
We're going to put an elf on the shelf on Steve's shoulder.
We'll be back with more War Room Pandemic tomorrow morning. In the meantime, make sure you're checking out the website, signing up to the mailing list. I want to thank our producers, our producers outside of the room here, outside of the War Room in Denver, americasvoice.news. Make sure you catch up on Newsmax this evening as well. On GTV, you're sharing. This show couldn't be the show it is without all of you guys, so we want to thank you, the audience, for that as well. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, producer Dan, Stephen K. Bannon will be back at some point when we let him...